leaders is someone's counting on you to finish your race well. And um, if the people in my life that helped me come to Jesus had fallen short or quit, I don't know where I would be. Not saying that God's grace isn't great enough that he could have reached me by some other means, but I'm so grateful for the people who went before me, who said, I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to be faithful, because it gave me something to look to and something to follow. And now I'm the person who I am because and so for you, someone is counting on you. And so love Jesus, find your intimacy with Jesus, be blameless in his sight, be an instrument used, ready to be used, right? Because someone's counting on that. And what we get to take to heaven is not our materials, it's people.
What's up, guys? We hope you're feeling alive right now. This is the Young Adults Today podcast. I'm Josiah Keneally.
And I'm Micah Keneally.
We're your hosts, and joining us today is our friend from Houston, Texas, Ray Clark. What's up, man?
What's up? How y'all doing? So glad to be here.
We're doing great, and we're so thrilled to have you as our guest and joining our audience today. And for those of you who are just tuning into the very first time, every Monday we launch a new episode where we are unpacking something regarding hopefully you and your leadership and what God wants to do in and through the things he's placed in your hands. How do we steward it well? How do we grow deep and wide and not forsake our first love in the process? So thank you for rating, subscribing, reviewing, sharing this podcast with others. That's hopefully going to influence and impact the way we think, the way we lead, the way we follow Jesus in our everyday living, as well as in our homes and on the stage, if that's what God has for us. So thank you for everything, audience. We love that you're tuning in.
No kidding. In today's content, we're going to just talk about strengthening a young adult ministry. We've had other episodes where we talk about launching, and it seems like a lot of churches are in the cycle of either launching or relaunching a young adult ministry. But today we want to unpack really like how to move from here to there and strengthening your core team, your personal leadership, developing volunteers and team around you to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. Ray Clark is joining us. He is the young adult pastor at Grace Church in Houston, Texas. We were just in Houston a month and change ago. We got to be there on a Tuesday night, and
it's wild.
It is incredible. I had no idea what to expect, but the whole time I just kept wanting to say, Ray, why didn't you tell me? Man, right off the bat, right out of the gate, take us to a Tuesday night in Houston. What's happening? What's going on at Grace Young Adults?
Man, right off the bat, God is moving, okay? Not in a cliche way. And I'm just going to be honest. You're going to hear some things that might sound cliche, like spiritual, hyper spiritual. No, like we are spiritual beings and we should be pursuing that which is spiritual, right? But God is moving in a mighty way. You'll see from the moment the doors open at 7:20, we just have hundreds of young adults that are flooding in the building, ready, prepared, expectant for a move of God, which wasn't always the case. Like people would come to church just to check off the box of I came to church. Now people are coming with expectation that God is actually alive. He's thriving. He's able. He's willing to move in their life. And so now they're just pumped and they're bringing their friends. And so, yeah, if you come on a Tuesday night, you'll see expectation. You'll feel expectation in the room. You'll feel like your family from the moment that you walk in. And we'll get into that a bit, why that's so important and how you create that. But you'll feel like family, and then you'll get dynamic worship, a powerful word, and then an incredible altar response moment where you can respond to what God spoke to you. And then you go and mingle with family. Yeah, so it's great.
No doubt. Come back or double down, expand on the idea that it used to be young adults came to check the box to church.
Yeah.
What changed? What shifted? Is there something tangible, intentional, or only spiritual? Like, how do you describe the shift from here to there?
Yeah. There was a time where people would come into Grace Young Adults, and as soon as service was done, they would run out the door. Like it would empty out immediately. And I remember my pastor talking about our kids ministry and anytime parents bring their kids into Sunday service, we're always trying to get them into kids ministry. And so he'll always say things like, I promise you, your kids are gonna cry when they leave because it's so good, right?
Beautiful.
And that motto, that verbiage kind of stuck with me. And I was like, I want people to cry because they have to leave young adults, right? Like I want them to want to stick around. I want them to fight to be around. And so when we were noticing as a team that they were just running out the door, we're like, we got to change this. We something has to change, and that's where the family dynamic really kind of stuck for us, and where that verbiage started to kind of come into play with our culture statements and what we believe create family. And so how are we doing that? Started creating teams that were like a red carpet team, which is you're just noticing people in the hall and you're making them feel like they're on the red carpet. Like everybody is important, not just the cool people, not just the ones that dress like you. Everybody is on the red carpet. And so you start seeing like leaders no longer just kind of getting together in their own crew. They're out there and they're on mission, they're on assignment, they're meeting everybody. Everybody's on red carpet, or is on the red carpet. And now people are feeling like, oh, okay, I feel welcome, I feel valued, I feel seen. I'm now getting names, I'm exchanging numbers, I'm exchanging social media. And then after service, it's like, man, I want to connect with the person that I got to connect with at first, or they sat down with the person they connected. So we just started creating this family dynamic where people are now coming for community, which I literally just preached a message on this last night, from Acts 2:42. This is the early church. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to
Yes.
fellowship, to breaking of bread, and to prayer, right?
Yes.
Fellowship in Greek is koinonia, and that's community. That's the having common together. And so we spoke about the community, the church, and also small group, what that looks like to be in like-minded community. And so they started getting together. They started noticing they needed community. They needed a church. They needed people to sharpen them and love on them and be family. And once that started like really taking with our leaders and volunteers and trickling down into the congregation, man, people didn't want to leave. Like they did not want to leave. They just wanted to stick around. And so now the cops are like, are they gonna leave? Like we're only paid to be here until a certain time. Like, can you start kicking them out, PR? And I'm like, nah, we're just gonna chill. And so now young adults are in the hallway until like 10:30, 10:45, like just chilling, talking, getting to know each other, really developing fellowship and community. And so that's a little bit of where I think it's no longer I'm checking off a box if I'm going to church. Now I'm going to participate in fellowship. Now I'm going to participate in what I believe is my family. Because some of them, they don't have a family that loves them. They don't have a family that's for them. They don't have a family that's encouraging them. They don't have a family that's wounding them in a way that a friend should wound them so that they can care for them and send them in the right direction, right? So when that started happening, people just started flocking and not wanting to leave. And that's been a beautiful thing.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh. What I hear you describing is there's been a culture shift, and you and a team of others have helped lengthen the linger. And I remember,
Reading my notes.
oh,
That's so
Linger
good.
longer. He's sneaking my notes.
didn't see it.
Oh, I bet he did.
That's so good.
But,
Lengthen the linger. Whew.
but I mean, I'm just thinking back to when we led young adults at Cedar Valley, it feels like a lifetime ago. But one of the things that we said around small groups is small groups are like the family of choice. They're the family that you choose. We've all got a family of origin, and friends can actually be kind of like a family that you choose. And
right.
I would even go so far as to say is one of the metrics of success for a young adult ministry. Maybe you're meeting in a house or in a small group setting. Maybe you're meeting like Grace does every Tuesday night, or maybe it's Thursday night or Sunday night, whenever it is.
Right.
I would go so far as to say that for young adults, how you measure success in a ministry is how long after the service ends do people hang out and stay.
Come on. That's huge.
A shift that we've noticed even when we were on a college campus is there was a season where they loved us as the leaders, the students did, but they did not love each other. And one of the commandments of Jesus is loving one another. And I think that like spending time together. And any other thoughts, Ray, on like what you did to train your leaders? Because I think that way when I show up at Grace Young Adults or our church or wherever, I noticed the newcomer,
Hmm.
but how did you help multiply that vantage point with a team of leaders?
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we have a monthly meeting that we get together as volunteers and leaders and staff, where I'm able to pitch vision, or I'm able to teach a leadership lesson or whatever. And there came a point we were prepping for an event called Motion Night. We do this once a year, a big event, big outreach. And we went to a college campus that's across the street, San Jack, and we were handing out flyers, and we were thinking it was going to be so great, a whole bunch of college students, and one person in the entire college campus showed up in the place that we were at. And I was super like bummed and hurt about it, because I'm like, put your resources in there, you spend some money, you spend time, you got more leaders there than the people that actually came out, and one person showed up. And Motion Night came up, and the guy that was there, his name is Ian, showed up to Motion Night. And um, Ian is like, he's not the guy that is rocking essentials. He's not the guy that's like rocking the fitted. You know what I mean? You would very much maybe look over an Ian, and um, and I saw Ian at Motion Night, and that struck something with me. It was that God was like, is he not worth it? Was the one person not worth it? Was the one person not worth you reaching and seeing? And ever since that, which was 2 years ago, he's not missed a service. Like, he's at every single service. And so that started to really like spark something in me and challenge something in me and kind of break my heart for the way I didn't notice the one. I
Mm,
didn't value the one. I didn't really. We preach about it, but if it was just one, would you be content with it, right? And that really happened for this college campus. It was just the one that came. And so I started telling the leaders, we have staff, practicum students, which is our leadership college. We have students that are in our ministry, and then interns that are also interning for our ministry. And then we have leaders, volunteers. That's kind
mhm,
of how that
mhm,
hierarchy goes, or
mhm.
the leadership goes. And so with the smaller group of staff, practicum and interns, I sat down with them, and I just started talking about, we're going to be for the Ians. Like, we are gonna go after the Ians, the ones that are in the corner, the ones that are shy, the ones that are looked over, misunderstood. We're gonna go for the Ians. And so that was part of our, we're just gonna always talk about that. I would talk about it almost every meeting. Think about the Ians. Then when I went to the monthly meetings, we're talking about the Ians. And so that's how that trickle effect kind of happened, where we're starting to value people, or see people, notice people, make them feel like family. Because if I'm valuing the Ians, that's not the easiest thing to do. Everybody else is easier. I'm gonna do that. But if I'm focusing on the harder, then it makes it easier for everybody else. And so that's kind of how that started, I believe, for our ministry. Is it's got to start from the top. It's got to start from our leaders, our practicum, our interns, who are influencing our leaders and volunteers, us getting that vernacular in our mouths, and then spreading that. But
Yeah, I think that's so good, because I think it's a great reminder of like Jesus left the 99 for the one. And I think so
right,
many times that we focus on the seats that are empty and we feel defeated, and we look, the one seat that's filled, their life was worth it. Like Jesus died on the
a
cross.
100%.
And I think
Yes.
in leadership, I think we've been taught, unfortunately, at least I think Josiah and I, myself, numbers matter. Like, if the more numbers you have, the more influential you are, the more successful your ministry
Hmm.
looks. But it's like, if you have 100 people and they're all surface level Christians, and none of them are growing in community, none of them are growing in Christ, none of them are attending a church, am I really doing what God's called me to do with the 100?
Yeah.
If you can
Yeah.
sometimes identify that one that might be quiet and shy, they could be the biggest influencer and impactor in that room, that can help rally the
Right.
troops or help with that culture shift that needs to change. And then what
Yeah.
we found, sometimes the quietest person becomes the best volunteer. And it's
Yep.
not because
Hmm.
it's because you called greatness out of them that they couldn't even see
Right.
themselves. So when it comes
Yes.
to the structures of when it comes to like your high impact activities or where people can get plugged in and involved, I'm just curious, what does that look like? Because sometimes I think there's 3 C's that come to my mind, and it's community, Christ, and church. Like those are the ultimate
Hmm.
goals of like what we do and
Good.
the way we do it. But it doesn't necessarily matter what order they come in because they all start packaging together. You know, if you come to
Yeah.
a community event and you're not a Christ follower, well, you're going to experience a form of Christ here, whether you accept it or not. If you come to
Right.
church doors, you're going to experience Christ and community. So when you're thinking through like what are the high impact outreaches, events, in-house or out of house, meaning the church, what have you found to be successful where people's fear decreases and their curiosity increases of who are these young adults, or what's in it, what's in this room for me? How can I discover who I am or who God is? What have you found that has worked and that might be a thought process that we as leaders could also kind of think through of the Ians of the world? Like, how have you been able
Yeah.
to navigate that?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think that at first, whenever I was trying to do high impact events or services, um, I was trying to make it hype. I was trying to make it cool. And I think as of the last 2 years, Jesus made me strip everything away. Like, he made me strip it all away. There's this practice that I heard a friend of mine do. It's called whiteboarding, and I don't know if you've ever heard of whiteboarding, but essentially you get a whiteboard, and for us, it was for our service. Got a whiteboard, and from the top to the bottom, everything that we did in that service. Pre-show, countdown, worship song, into the welcome slot, into video announcements, whatever, game, giveaway, everything that we did. We wrote it down on that board. And then next to it, we put a percentage of engagement uh, of what we felt like the room was participating in. And if the giveaway, 30% of people were engaged. The video announcement, 25% of people were engaged because they're all talking to each other, not really listening to anything being said in the video. All right, anything that doesn't reach a 75%, and you got to just kind of guess on that, but a 75% engagement because nobody cares about it. And you're wasting your time doing something that nobody cares about, right? You're using resources and hours to do something that nobody cares about. So we did that, and we found out that the only thing that people really cared about was worship and the word. And so we took out everything in our services. We took out video announcements. Now, do we do announcements? Yeah, we do live announcements. So our we have a countdown, first song, then we have a mic slot where 2 people come up, they do announcements, they welcome first time guests, they do tithe and offering because we're always going to do that. It's a principle we believe in. Then we do 3 worship songs. I come up, I preach, we have a response, and we dismiss. Everything else, all the fluff, you can get before service and after service. But if I got you for an hour and a half, I'm gonna make sure that you're gonna get what you came for. What you wanted was the word and worship. So when you ask that question, what we've come to find out here, and I think everybody has to find out what their demographic is and what their vibe is and what their culture is. What we've come to find out here is that we're not gonna compromise on what we know has been working for us, and it's just been stripping everything away and making it Jesus. People want Jesus. They want the truth. We're no longer doing the hype. And I don't know if that really answers fully the question, and maybe you can direct me if you need me to answer it in a different way. But that's how we have navigated any events that we put on, our services that we put on. And we're just going to keep the focus on Jesus, the word, and worship.
Oh man, I think that's so good. And you did answer elements of that question totally. And I think what you're essentially getting at is something that Josiah and I, like we hosted the weekend, which happens every May here in Minnesota, anywhere between 200 to 300 young adults who are just gathering between the ages of 18 and 30. And our theme a couple years ago was hunger over hype. Because I think focus on the hype gets me in the door on some levels, but the hunger keeps me there. And that's where you linger longer in worship, in the word, in the community dynamics. And when we start recognizing as leaders, like if we stop doing X, Y, and Z, would anybody even notice? Or am I just like nickel
Right.
and diming myself to death about this problem that I think we have, or this game that
Nobody
we,
cares.
and then it's like, you're right. It's like nobody cares and nobody knows that it's even gone, because
Right.
when you respond to the hunger in their soul that they don't know how to feed themselves, whether that's the word and worship in a form of community, you're providing all of their needs in that hour and a half. And like you said, the fluff is before and after, like you can figure that out on your own. But I think that
Right.
great reminder for all of us as leaders, like we are nothing but a bunch of beggars in need of some bread, and we know where to get it, and we can take other people there with us, right?
Mhm.
Like we have,
Yes.
God is the
Yes.
bread of life, and we can feed others in that process. We remove the hype. It really strips down essentially our selfish ambitions to be known at times,
Mm.
but it elevates God. And I think that's exactly where he wants us to be. And when we can understand
Yeah.
that, get before our teams and say, okay, we're going to do a SWOT analysis. I don't know if you guys have ever done this. It's similar to a whiteboard. After every event, Sai and I go through SWOT. What were our strengths? What were the weaknesses? What were the opportunities? And what were the threats? And that can be anything. A threat
Come
can
on.
be anything from like the weather to a Mother's Day weekend. Like we didn't think this was a holiday. Opportunities are like,
Right.
how can we kind of make this better? Or what did we miss? And a weakness is like, wow, we didn't have enough volunteers. Our ratios were not conducive to, what we thought it was going to be. Strengths could be anything,
Yeah.
like, wow, God showed up in amazing ways. There was salvations, there was healings, whatever it is. And that really just does some self-evaluation of why do we do what we do in our ministries, and what could just, go and just be gone. So
No kidding. And I love
That's
that, because a hunger will take you further than hype ever will. And
yeah.
a couple of the things that we've implemented anytime we lead in ministry, they came from when I was on staff at a church. And the first one is about 8 years between interning and then being a pastor on staff. There was a weekly pastoral staff meeting that I was a part of. And our lead pastor said, you either bring 2 names to this meeting of new people that you met on Sunday, or you bring me $2. And starting out, I was broke. I'm like, he's making
Yeah.
more money than I am. And it was like a conviction. I was like, no matter how long I'm here, I will never pay him money. It
Right.
is the money going the wrong way. And so in
Right.
8 years of weekly staff meeting, I never had to pay $2, never had to pay $1.
Let's
It,
go.
it was just a commitment. And I'm no longer on staff at a church, but just about every week I could get you 2 names of people I met. And
Incredible.
so, you know what? It changed the way that I view things, and it changed how we lead leaders. The other one is a 5-5-1. So when we would show up on a Thursday night or at youth group or whatever it is, it's I'm gonna meet 5 people. I'm gonna say hi to 5. I'm gonna know 5 people's names, but there's gonna be one meaningful conversation that I'm gonna have. And this could
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
pre-service, this could be after service, but I'm looking for the one, to use your vernacular. I'm looking for that in.
That's so good.
And then in that, I think the greatest opportunity is the amount of texts that we get weekly of young adults in the state of Minnesota that are like, I'm looking for community, is bonkers. It's bananas. And so
Yeah.
people are coming to your young adult ministry longing for an introduction. Who can you introduce people to? Or what's your
Right.
capacity as a leader to say, you know what, I'm going to commit every week. I'm going to have coffee with one young adult, going to have a one-on-one, or I'm going to have somebody over for dinner.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Ray. What encouragement do you have to offer the person who's listening, or they're watching on YouTube and they're leading a young adult ministry? What
Yeah.
encouragement do you have for them today?
All right. Man, I think I got 2 things, okay? Probably 3 or 4. But Revelations 2, and you kind of spoke on this, Micah. It says, you've not grown weary in doing good, but this I have against you. You've forsaken your first love. So go back and do the things you did at first. And I think that sometimes we get so caught up in the work of ministry, and we forget why we got into this thing in the first place.
Wow.
We get so caught up in loving being the messenger and not in love with the message itself. And I think that that's been an issue for a lot of pastors, a lot of leaders. We fall in love with being the messenger and not the message of Christ. And so I would encourage any leader, any young adult pastor, anybody who's wanting to lead people and shepherd people, don't forsake your first love. Go back to what it was at first. And I had to remind myself, what was it like when I first met Jesus? Man, every song I listened to was worship music, and I was reading the Bible front to back, and I didn't understand it, but I was reading it. I was highlighting. I mean, I was telling people, I was evangelizing. I mean, when you first fell in love with Jesus, you were on fire. There was a fervor out of you. And somewhere along the way, we lose that because we replaced it with working. And man, I've just, in this season, that's been the heartbeat for the ministry. It was in November of 2022 where God spoke to me, and that came to play. And that has been the heartbeat of the staff, the heartbeat of the leaders. Fall in love with Jesus. A mentor of mine, I don't mean to name drop, but Dan Leanne. Do you guys know who Dan Leanne is? He's an incredible pastor, communicator.
Yeah.
Anyways, he sat down and he preached for us one week, and he sat down. He said, "Ray, there's something special that's happening here, and I want to encourage you with this. Fall in love with Jesus. Like, series, they're great. You know, the events, they're great, but fall in love with Jesus. And it's from the overflow of your love with Jesus that he's going to work through you." And when he told me that, I really, like, it pushed me back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out on the fullness of what God has wanted for me. So I just started falling in love with you. I started watching The Chosen. I gave my life to Jesus again. You know what I mean? Like, I was just falling in love with him. And then so that trickled down. And then I think the next thing, and we kind of spoke about this earlier, but we get so caught up in numbers, right? And the phrase that the Lord gave us as a ministry this year is names over numbers, stories over stats. And that's what we're running on. We're going to be about names. So we're going to meet people. We're going to get their names. We challenge our volunteers, we challenge our leaders, find out stories. Like, tell us about them, hear about them, what's going on in their life. And then we have a doc that goes out, we send to all of our small group leaders, and they have a document that they can go and, I met this person, and they write out their story. And so it's their name, it's their gender, it's their story, it's their age, it's their information. That way, that if we ever want to capture stories, we can capture stories because we got a log of them too. And those stories, so we started the year with a series called Life Change, and we ended that series with the story of guy George, who came to the church one day, a bottle full of liquor. I met him, had him out that night. He kind of went his own way. And years later, I see him at the gym. I don't recognize him. He comes up to me, "Do you remember me?" I said, "No." And he's like, "I was that one guy that came to the service and you had me pour out." And he looked completely different, completely different. God had radically changed the way he looked, the way he was. There was a light. Now he's a leader on our team. Now he's serving every single week. And so we captured and now he's a pilot. Like these are stories, names and stories. And so we captured an interview with him. And when I tell you, the entire room is like in tears and everybody's coming up. That spoke to me. I needed to hear that. That's me. If God could do it for George, he could do it for me. Right. And so now as a ministry, we're capturing stories, but we're capturing them on video too, because we want people to know that if they could do it for George, they could do it for Celeste, they could do it for Mariah, they can do it for you. And people are seeing this now on social media, and they're saying, "Oh my God, life change is happening at that church. I need to be a part of that." So if I can encourage you as a volunteer, a leader, a pastor, fall in love with Jesus every day. Fall in love with him, and then names over numbers, stories over stats.
Oh, that's so good. And speaking of stories, we love to ask you 5 and 5. It's a rapid fire, kind of like a home run derby. So it's 5 questions, 5 minutes, and our audience also loves stories. Oh, do you have something else, Josiah, that you want to start? You kick off the first question.
I've got the first question. Speaking of stories, you were born, and then what happened? Share with us some of your journey of life.
It was dark and then there was light. You know what I'm saying? And then, no, I was born. Then I spent like 4 years there. My parents got divorced pretty early on. Moved to Florida with my dad. Spent 17 years there. Was not raised in a Christian home. We were Catholic-ish. Kind of went to church, not really. Was able to do whatever I wanted. And one day I was playing baseball. I saw a girl in the stands, and her brother was playing on my team. So I was like, "Yo, what's good with your sister?" And he was like, she got a boyfriend, but he lives in New York. And I was like, so, okay, good. So that doesn't really matter because we're in Florida. Like I could slide. And they were like, well, we go to church, so you got to come to church with us. And so I started going to church. And around 16 years old, I gave my life to Jesus. And then I kind of like fell away and came back, and thank you, Lord, for your grace. But at 18 years old, I joined an internship to become a youth pastor. And so I started interning at my church. My youth pastor moved here to Houston. I stayed in Florida, and I know I'm doing way more. I'm sorry, I'm taking up your minute. I moved here to Houston, and then I've been doing ministry ever since. 3 years here. Moved to Vegas to plant a church, then came back. Been here 7 years, so a total of 10 years now doing ministry. Anyways.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So is that girl that you saw in the stands your wife, or was that someone led you to Christ?
Nope. Nope. She just helped lead me to Christ, and God will
Amen.
use anybody. You know what
That
I'm
is
saying?
right. An eager heart
Yeah.
starts off with one ambition and ends up with something even better. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Okay, so Ray, second question. Who is your baseball team?
Astros, Houston Astros.
Okay.
That's it.
Love it.
Hey, we picked up one of your guys, Carlos Correa. He's gonna help us, and Royce Lewis and Buxton, and we're gonna have a
No,
year here
no.
in Minnesota with the
Listen,
Twins.
we are not doing good opening right now, but we're gonna turn it around. Watch. Yes.
Okay, here is the curveball. Do you see how I went from stories to you brought up baseball? That was the second question. Third question, curveball, building on that second question. If you could ask Micah
Mm,
and I anything, what would you want to know?
mm. How do you guys keep a healthy marriage?
Oh man. Prioritize.
Mm.
Prioritize. I think one word that God literally laid on my heart for 2024 was prioritize your priorities. And
Mm,
I think that just helps realign everything. Like we talked about going back to your first love, like Lord, like I want to keep you first, marriage second, children third, ministry fourth. And when
mm.
we start prioritizing that list on the forefront of our daily, our weekly, our monthly calendar, and our yearly rhythms, I think one thing that we like to do is Thursday night's our date night.
Yep.
So we take turns planning every other with the other person in
That's
mind.
great.
So when we do that,
Mm,
pursuit through that, it's like we come prepared with good conversations. We're not going to talk about the kids in the ministry. So we even set up those parameters and those guidelines of like, hey, we're prioritizing us right now. Like, how are we? We get to
so
have
good.
those weekly check-ins. And sometimes it's daily. I mean, depending on what season we're in, but it's the check-ins. But
Oh,
Yeah.
everything she just said. I mean, I double down on the weekly date nights, planning for each other. And then here's what I would say is two other things. How we began our marriage was in Hawaii on a honeymoon. Can I get a hallelujah? That was awesome. But
Come on. That's
we
amazing.
literally began with the end in mind, and we came up with like a dream document. Like, and it's
Mm,
like, you know what? We've seen some things come to fruition faster than the dream timeline. And then there's still some prayers that like Mark Batterson talks about. There's still prayers that we're circling. There's
circling.
still dreams that we're contending for and a vision that God's given us in our life. But with that, every year minimum, we'll try to get away. Maybe it's an overnight, whatever. And I
Mm,
think last year, the year before, it was a day trip to Chicago, like quick flight in, quick flight out.
yes.
And then we're at the Starbucks roastery, but we're dreaming like, hey, anything that you want to add? Is there anything that God downloaded? And then here's what I would say specifically in any guy or in anyone specifically in ministry, if I could challenge you with one thing, it'd be this. So often historically, what I've seen modeled is the guy is the visionary, the guy is the pastor, and the female is the silent partner.
Mm,
And I would just challenge the guy to find out one dream of your wife's and champion it and
Mm,
believe in it and get behind it and push like it was your own.
Mm-hmm.
so good.
And I think like finding out, asking great questions like Ray, like you just did, like, what are some of your dreams or what does lead to a healthy marriage? But when I go, hey, babe, what's a dream on your heart? And then I get my weight behind it and not do it for her, but I'm like, I've got your six, I've got your back
Yeah,
with you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to push.
so good.
I want to challenge you in that dream. I want to bless and support and encourage what it's going to take for me to pick up some things around the house so you can go after your dream.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
I think when you can prefer the other person, that's
that's
helped
good.
us.
That's good. Can I
that's
say
it.
the weird thing that comes to mind when he's describing this? If you ever seen Jumanji, it's like when The Rock is like the main character and like Mr. Smolder, like he's got
Yeah,
a
yeah,
smolder
yeah.
and the backpack guy. He's just like,
Kevin Hart.
I'm the backpack guy. Like sometimes I think the wife can feel like the backpack guy. Like I'm
Wow.
you look good and I gotta carry all this weight so we can do this together. So that's the image I got. Like I'm just the backpack guy, but that's not how I feel.
Well,
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Such a great analogy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Speaking of travel
so back
and
to you.
fun,
Yes.
Ray, what is one place you and maybe your family would love to see or travel to that you have never been?
All right. Keeping my wife in mind. She wants
Bravo.
to go to the mountains. She wants to go to New Zealand. So she
Mhm.
loves Lord of the Rings. And so New Zealand would be something that would be beautiful for us to go to. If I had it my way, it would be Bora Bora because I love the beach and anything clear water. But I think a good compromise would be New Zealand.
Let's
I love
go.
it.
And you know what? I pray that there's some listener who like helps maybe donate you some Sky Miles or something, a timeshare.
Come on.
Let's get him there. I think that somebody is a dream maker. And I think I just pray that over your life that it happens.
Wow.
And as a result
Wow.
of this
Hey,
podcast.
if I need a dream smaller, I'm good with Hawaii.
That works too, right?
It's
Oh, I love it.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
if we handed you the microphone and you could give one piece of advice to young leaders listening to go the distance in ministry, to stay the course, what would you want them to focus on?
Holiness, intimacy with Jesus, those two. Uh, the way I paint it to our leaders is someone's counting on you to finish your race well. And um, if the people in my life that helped me come to Jesus had fallen short or quit, I don't know where I would be. Not saying that God's grace isn't great enough that he could have reached me by some other means, but I'm so grateful for the people who went before me who said, I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to be faithful because it gave me something to look to and something to follow. And now I'm the person who I am because and so for you, someone is counting on you. And so love Jesus, find your intimacy with Jesus, be blameless in his sight, be an instrument used, ready to be used, right? Because someone's counting on that. And what we get to take to heaven is not our materials, it's people. And so we're called to reach people, right? Anyways, that's what I'd give you.
Wow, somebody is counting on you
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
be the trustworthy, followable, count onable leader. Is when you can look at somebody and say, count on it, count on it, count on Jesus.
Mm,
As imperfect
yeah,
as I am, you
Right.
can count on me. I'm there for you. I got your back.
yeah.
So
Dude,
good.
we love you. We're grateful for the time together today. And
Mhm.
So grateful.
dude, when we showed up at Grace Young Adults, I just saw God move and work in some significant ways. And you, my friend, carry a humility
Mhm.
to where this is what I've observed is it wouldn't be out of the question on a Tuesday night for 1,000 young adults to show up and you're there for the one
Right.
and you are leading the dozens just like
Mm.
you would lead the hundreds. And that is something that I aspire to, that we aspire to, that come what may, there's a humility and we're just vessels. And so, man, I just honor
Mhm.
you for your
Yeah.
humility that you carry. Um,
And I also say your ability to stay in tune with the spirit. Like even when you guys were leading worship, I'm just like, wow, just how you're able to function and flow with your team. It's evident that you're a person of prayer, you're a person of obedience, and you're a person like you're not just telling people, even this last question that we had is like pursue holiness. Like I can see that you're pursuing holiness. And I think when you
Yeah. Come
that
on.
as a leader, you can take people places that they're not going to be able to take themselves because they don't have anybody to follow. So it's like, I don't know. I just want to encourage you with
Mm,
like you are making a difference and God is doing incredible things and keeping him first is the key to I don't know, the breakthrough miracle power that can happen into the hearts and souls that are farthest from Christ.
yeah.
We're so excited for what God's doing in and through you, your
Um,
ministry, your family, the church. And oh man, Tuesday night is amazing place to be. So if you're down in the Texas
Thank
area,
you.
just gonna say
if
that.
you want to check it out, what do you want to say, Josiah?
I was just gonna say this. Sometimes in ministry, it's helpful to see what God's doing and be a part of it,
Yeah.
and just see what God's doing. And I would say, man, like if you can get your way on a Tuesday night,
Yeah.
Houston, Texas, you'll be glad you did at Grace Young Adults. And Ray, we love you.
Come on.
Conversation, man.
Love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. If anybody is coming, we'd love to host you seriously. So reach out to us. And I just want to honor the both of you. Thank you for pioneering the way for so many young adult leaders and pastors and taking the time and the effort to lead and lead well. We're better because of the both of you. And so, man, we champion you. Share, everybody share, subscribe. Because we love you. We want this to blow up and we want you to be able to leave a big impact and footprint in this world. You're already doing it, but I just want to honor you. I love you guys.
Thank you
It's
so
an
much.
honor, and we're
Yes.
in it together, man. Better together.
Yes.
This is the Young Adults Today podcast.